Hey Gearheads, and welcome to Garage Talk, a discussion about all things automotive. I'm Cory.
And I'm Matt. And each week this podcast will serve as a catalyst for discussion on all sorts of topics that grind our gears, rev our engines, shatter front differentials, and all kinds of other good stuff.
Yeah, so a little bit of foreshadowing there from you. We have with us this evening, and he's actually joining with us right now, from a year ago when we actually met him and first interviewed him, Bryant Blakemore. So let's welcome Bryant on. We're recording live with you right now, buddy. So I hope you're good to go.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah. How's it been, man?
Good. It's going. Things are going well. I'm staying busy, and work is keeping me up past my shift, and everything's normal.
Yeah. Such is the way of things. So I was actually looking back through some of our old podcasts because I don't know if you're aware, but Matt and I, a little self-promotion here, just won an award, or actually 2 awards, for episodes we recorded right around the time we actually met you. And so that had me
nice.
Going back and listening to our first episode with you, which actually turned into 2 episodes. We just got to talking so much and couldn't stop.
That was awesome.
So,
right.
We're just very glad to have Bryant Blakemore back with us. Do I talk for money or what? But you've had an interesting year since last we spoke to you on the podcast. What have you been up to, man?
All kinds of stuff. So this past year, I did not buy any cars, which is amazing. I've got like 2 weeks left in the year, and I will have completed my New Year's resolution of not buying any cars this year, which is impressive. I feel. Amongst that, that shadows everything else I've done, obviously.
Right.
So underneath that, I've made 2 trips to Baja, and then I got my race truck back out on the racetrack and raced the Mint 400 about 2 weeks ago. So it's been a year. It's been quite a year. I've had a couple town hall meetings and some other smaller meetings out in Hudspeth County, where I'm trying to get my race association back on track out there. I've contracted a lobbyist firm out of Austin to help me in my negotiations with the state entities that have a lot of control in that area as well. And man, it's just, I did not expect, I thought not buying cars was going to slow me down on everything else, and it didn't. You know. Oh yeah, so it's not like I can't spend money. I sure know how to spend money, just on different things.
I'm slightly offended because in that list of things from the past year, you didn't mention getting to meet us in person at the Texas Truck Rodeo, and 2, finally getting behind the wheel of a TRX yourself.
Right. Yeah, I don't know how I forgot that. Sorry.
I would have figured the TRX thing would have been like number 2 on your total list, besides the Mint 400 or...
Well, my time in it was rushed and very limited. It was only like 3 to 5 minutes in the truck. It was an awesome 3 to 5 minutes, but... I've done a lot of things this year that have lasted longer than 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So there's that. But no, that was an awesome experience. I really appreciate Tia inviting me to come down and be a part of the truck rodeo, and to help out with the off-road course, and to spend some time with Sue Mead and her crew, and meet a handful of people. I'd like to give a shout out to the guys at Nissan. They were awesome to sit and talk with.
Yeah.
Yes.
The guys at Lexus were cool. I didn't get to spend a whole lot of time with the Dodge guys, unfortunately, which or the Ram guys rather, which I was hoping to do. But I did have a chat with the heavy duty Ram representative, and I can't remember his name that was out there. Adrian, yeah, and we had some good talks, and he saw what his customers' trucks do in the wild,
Yeah.
by seeing my chase truck out there and hearing about that. And I think he gained something from that conversation, it felt
Right.
like. So that was an amazing experience, and that was an awesome way to lead off my first trip to Baja this year. I literally left the truck rodeo and drove from Austin to Ensenada immediately after that event. I mean, I didn't take a break or anything. We loaded up and hit the road, and it was intense.
So let's start there. We'll go truck rodeo, first trip to Baja,
Sure.
Mint 400, and we may meander along the way.
Sure.
So you, as you mentioned, were invited by the incoming president of Texas Auto Writers Association, Tia Collier, to
Right.
be one of the off-road spotting
Trail guides.
trail guides for the 2021 Texas Truck Rodeo. And yes, you brought it's a Dodge Ram, right? It's before it was branded as a Ram?
No, it's a Ram.
Okay.
It's a 13.
Okay.
Yep.
So you brought out your Ram chase truck, and out of the, what was it, 35, 40 brand new trucks and SUVs that were brought out for us to sample, I think your chase truck got more eyeballs and more wish list jot downs than I think any of the new things that were out there. I mean, we had Maseratis, we had Alfa Romeos, we had the Wagoneer, we had the TRX, so many cool things out there. And you had many, many, many journalists drooling over your chase truck.
Hey, I'll take it. They can drool all over it and write about it and call me, and I'll talk about it. It doesn't matter. That piece of equipment is impressive. Is just the only way to describe it. And I'm not trying to brag on it. It's a work truck through and through. It lives a very difficult life. I take care of it, but it needs to do a lot of jobs, and so it is built to do that. It's a purpose-built machine that, although its purpose is more Swiss Army knife than it is, single Tano blade or whatnot. But yeah, it when you start parking it among commuter cars, it's out.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a beast. So, quick 2-minute pitch, describing it a little bit to any new listeners that may not have.
Sure. Okay, so I started with a 2013 Ram 3500. It was a crew cab long bed dually, 4-wheel drive with a 6.7 liter Cummins in it and the ASIN transmission. And I bought the truck because I had just started my off-road racing program, and I needed a vehicle that could tow my race car. In the off-road world, that vehicle's designation is a chase truck because it is designed to chase the race car around the course and get ahead of it and supply the pit area with tools, fuel, tires, people, lighting, everything you would need to basically have a mobile mechanic shop, gas station, restaurant on wheels off-road. That's what its job is. So I built that truck. I bought it, and it was completely stock. I've done everything to it myself, and with the help of some of my buddies. We built, I put a service bed on it that I bought used from Sam Houston State University, and then I built a rack to go over the roof to hold more equipment and all of my lights. It's got 360 degrees of off-road lighting. It's got Thurin suspension on it so it can handle the off-road stuff, which I take it through frequently in my trips to Baja. It's got King shocks on it all the way around, 37-inch tires with Raceline bead locks, and I have since upgraded to some billet wheels, forged wheels, and an industrial tire from Continental. And like I said, the truck is built as a multi-purpose tool. It's built to support my race vehicle. And in addition to that, I do off-road recovery and things of that nature when I go down to Baja. And so it has to be able to handle all those things. Thurin suspension, King shocks, all the lighting on it, and the service bed, which I call a backpack for your pickup truck, because it carries everything. I load it down. It weighs 12,000 pounds empty, and loaded, it's closer to 14 when it's in race weight with fuel and everything like that. So
That's
it's
awesome.
it's a utility truck used for utility purposes.
So the Continentals, you just recently upgraded to those. How are you liking those
Yes.
tires?
So far so good. They're a little narrow.
Okay.
In order to go to a wider tire, I'd have to go to like a 40 or 43 inch tall tire, and that's a lot of tire.
Man.
But so far so good. They're taking the weight. I towed my race car out to Vegas and back on them, so that I was probably pushing 26,000 pounds at that point, and it did okay. It was a little squirrely on the highway compared to using its normal state as a dually.
Yeah.
Just because everything I have is so heavy. But so far so good. I do need to rotate them. I've heard that they don't have a long life on the highway, and so I need to stay on top of rotation. And I can already tell that they're wearing out.
Yeah.
A little bit. So I need to do a rotation before the next trip that truck goes on for sure.
Man, oh man, that's awesome. I love the revolving door of parts and bits, and you build it, and then something doesn't work, so you change that and you make it better, and you change this to make that better, and I love it. I love it.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm looking forward to the next few upgrades. That truck's still not where I want it to be. I'd like to have some sort of onboard air system, probably CO2 tanks. I'd like to have an onboard welder. I'd like to have a generator, and then also a real strong power inverter on it as well. And I think that should about round it out until someone makes something cool that I need to have.
Well, that's only another 1,200 pounds, so you should be fine.
Oh, yeah, whatever.
You want to talk about Swiss Army knife? Goodness gracious. So that is the rig not only that you brought to Tawa, Texas Auto Riders, but you left immediately from, you got your 3 to 5 minutes in the TRX, hopped in your chase truck, and drove to Baja.
Drove to Baja. That's correct. Yep.
So
yeah, those two trips lined up perfectly on my days off from work, and I was real fortunate that I was able to make both of those. That experience there with y'all and all the other industry people and the journalists was amazing, and I really, really appreciate being able to do that, and I look forward to helping out in the future with that as well.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Looking forward to seeing you again at an event such as that, or maybe Baja, or
something else.
We'll see what the future holds. We don't know, but again, that truck is built to serve a purpose, and then you put it on the highway, which really isn't its current and designed purpose anymore. And I remember following along with you as we were getting back from Austin ourselves, just following your journey as you headed west.
Right.
How did that thing handle on the road, and how much did it beat you up?
It does well on the highway, mainly because of the weight. It rides very well. Everyone that's gotten in it on road and off road is really impressed at the size of the vehicle and then how well it rides off road. I've spent a lot of time and a little bit of money to make sure that I use the right parts to do that, and the suspension setup and steering setup and all those pieces that I've put together over the years. It's a good combination. So I like road tripping in that truck better than any of my other vehicles, which is not saying much about my fleet of vehicles. If that's my nice one.
Well, you've got an old Cadillac. Let's see.
Still have the Cadillac.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And a Jeep, and then an old beat up Chevy, and and a Porsche that doesn't run. And, so. But yeah, it does well. It does not get good fuel mileage. I'm getting a little better fuel mileage with the Continental tires because they're speed rated to 68 miles an hour. So I have to slow down if I want the tires to live. Long enough to where I'm not buying 2 sets a year. But on the 37s with the beadlocks, when I went to Baja that trip, I was seeing about 10 or 11 miles per gallon on diesel out of it. So it was a lot.
Yeah.
Thirsty girl. So that trip to Baja, what did it entail for you?
Sure. So Like most all of my trips to Baja, actually, like all of my trips to Baja, I went down for one of the NORA races. This was the NORA Mexican 1000 that happens in April. And I went down in the form of sweep and recovery. And I do that. I do that every year that I can. And what I do, my function there is to go down and assist the race by being stationed in certain areas or following after the racers have gone through to pull broken race cars out of the course if they have a problem and get them to where their chase crew can recover them with a trailer or drag them out further or fix them or do whatever they need to do. I'm going to be honest, it's been quite a year, so the details on that trip are a little fuzzy.
That's all right.
On what kind of cars I recovered or what kind of situations I got into. I don't quite remember what happened on that trip.
I can imagine they all kind of blur together, and the sleep deprivation may have also played into that a little bit.
I do remember that this year, because of COVID, we weren't able to go. Usually that race goes from Ensenada all the way down to Cabo. So it covers the entire peninsula, the entire Baja Peninsula. At this race this year, it did not do that. So it was still 1,000+ miles, and it was still 5 days of racing. But we ended up going, trying to make sure that I'm not getting years mixed up, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. Good. So we went, we weren't able to go into southern Baja. So we spent 5 days in northern Baja. We went to the Bay of LA, and we stayed in the Bay of LA twice and ran 2 loops out of there and then back to Ensenada. Yeah, that was the year. No. I don't remember what happened this year.
Living the life.
I don't remember what happened this year.
I don't blame you. Stuff kind of goes together when you're making that many trips out there. So
I'll have to go back and look at my Facebook album for the year.
Well, you got to help a celebrity up a hill in an EV.
That was this year?
Yeah. That was this year. Tanner Faust.
In the Volkswagen.
Okay, hang on. Hang on. That's what I thought, but when was
that would have been
when was the truck rodeo?
Early October.
Okay, so we're talking about 2 different timelines here.
Okay. All right.
That's why I'm confused.
Okay.
That's why I'm confused. Because
you are busy.
My co-dog, my co-driver, my navigator for the trip in April was Humberto Ortiz of Vulcan Specialties out of Lubbock. So we left out of Lubbock for that trip.
Man.
That was in April of this year for the 1000. Now, I did go to Baja after the truck rodeo, and it was for a NORA race.
Okay.
But that was the 500, and I drove out alone because my girlfriend flew out and then went to Baja with me. Yeah. That's why I was getting confused because I couldn't remember who was in the car with me. So, okay, right. I remember now. Went to Baja, had to stay in northern Baja. There was a celebrity and kind of a celebrity car there, and it was Tanner Faust and Emmy Hall, and they were in an all-electric ID4 that had been semi-rally prepped. It was mostly stock, but some little modifications had been done to the suspension, and of course roll cage and those types of safety features. But it still had the bright white steering wheel that you find in the production model and everything. It had
so it was the first edition and everything.
Yeah, and all of that. It was impressive. On one of the days, we were stationed at the top of a really tall sandy hill, and they were not setting a real fast pace, so they were one of the last cars on course. Which is understandable. I mean, it's a stock electric car.
Yeah, right.
What do you want from it? And you're racing it off-road, 1,200 miles. So it had difficulty getting up this sandy hill. So we ended up stretching about almost 100 feet of tow strap down the hill, and then I just let the big girl eat and took it up the hill, drug it up the whole way, and Tanner unhooked from it and jumped back in, and they took off. And that was my my experience there, and got to put a sticker on the car that says you were recovered by us and this and that.
Nice.
On some of the last days, we kind of leapfrogged with that crew since they were towards the back of the pack. I watched them recharge the car on the side of the road, and I got to chat with one of their engineers that was in that program. I got to chat with the lead engineer of that entire program, which was awesome. And then one of the systems engineers or an electrical engineers, in some capacity, who looked pretty out of place in a race suit at an off-road desert race. And I saw him standing there, and we got to talking, and he told me what he did with the car and whatnot. I said, so did you expect that you would be in this car at this race? And he was like, nope. All I did was design this and this and this, and I'm keeping an eye on these systems. And then they told me, hey, why don't you get in the car with Tanner? And so, I lettered in robotics in high school, so I understand the type.
Yep.
And to see a guy that is not in the race world be thrown into that mix, and his excitement for it was just awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm sure that they have made a lifelong racing fan out of that guy.
That's cool.
And plus having the opportunity to sit in a early production, maybe even prototype car, and
with Tanner Faust
drive around the Baja Peninsula with professional race car driver stud Tanner Faust.
Yeah.
How awesome is that? What an experience to go back and tell all your colleagues.
I know, right?
Hey, next time they want volunteers, you should go.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, so, that was pretty wild.
Yeah, what's really crazy, so VW has put a lot of time, energy, and effort behind the rallying of that platform, because they released an all-wheel drive version and sent it to the Rebel Rally. And we actually talked to the pilot and co-pilot of that team with Mercedes Lilienthal and Emily Winslow, and got their perspective of it. So it, again, very similar setup, very mildly modified for that type of environment.
And it did it. I mean, it completed the entire rally, all 5 days. It was a challenge for that car for sure. There's a couple pieces of it that probably got left behind and donated to the Baja gods, but that's good luck. Some bumper covers and whatnot.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was awesome. And they had it out on the dry lake bed, and they got it going fast out there, on some smooth hard packed dirt. And I was impressed. With it. I'm not 100% on board that electrics are the way we should have gone for the next thing.
Right.
But if you're going to do it like that, put the effort in to make sure that they're real cars that can do real things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, I mean, it's only competition in Baja at the same level would be like a 1989 Toyota Camry. So, that'd be a good race.
Yeah. All right. So that was your trip to Baja following the Texas Truck Rodeo in October.
No, that was before. That
trip
was in April.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was my first trip in April.
Tell us about your most recent trip out there, because you weren't in your chase truck for that trip.
No, I was. Chase truck both times to Baja.
No, I'm talking about the Mint 400.
That was in Vegas. 400.
Yeah, okay.
Or Nevada.
Yeah, so Baja in April, Texas Auto Riders in October, early October, back to Baja in October again for the NORA 500.
Yep.
Did that same thing, sweep and recovery, pulled out some cool cars, had a great time as always. I get back from that, and I was originally trying to get my race truck together to race that race in Baja.
Okay.
That was the original plan. And at the time at which I started trying to figure out prep and put my money aside to afford that is when I had some traction with the lobbyist firm in Austin for my race association and dealing with the state organizations that we're dealing with to try to get things figured out and get everybody on the same page and understand the benefits across the board of desert racing in Texas. So because of the progress that was making, I said, okay, I need to dedicate my efforts to that program and not to get my truck together to go to Baja. And I believe in this sport and this industry enough in Texas that I will shelf my own race program in order to pursue racing for everybody and opportunity for everybody. I believe in it with all the fibers of my being that this sport has a place to live here. And so when opportunities like that come up, that's the call I got to make.
Yeah.
Well, do that. It's going well. Still want to go to Baja. I have a hard time not going to Baja whenever there's an opportunity, no matter what the capacity is, especially if it's related to a race. So I went anyway. It doesn't cost me nearly as much if I go do sweep and recovery, as long as I don't break something in my truck. Then it's not a big deal, and it's a good thing to volunteer for and help out and meet people and network and all that. When I got back from that trip, I guess towards the end of October, my buddy Chuck Brazier, who runs the Hoopty Cross series, texted me. He said, "Hey, are you going to the Mint?" And I said, "No, I don't think so. I hadn't even really looked at it. I don't really think about it." Well, Chuck, thanks for planting that little bug in my ear, because then my brain said, why don't you just look at the entry list and see who's going? Okay. So I opened up the entry list and there were 0 Class 8 trucks registered. And then I started digging into it a little more, and I saw that there was not only were there 0 trucks, but there was a $10,000 purse for Class 8. And I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. Normally money like that doesn't come up for limited class vehicles, or, if we're honest, in off-road racing in general at this point. It's not a big money sport. And to see a $10,000 prize sitting there, I thought, golly, I need to ask about that. So I contacted the Mint and I said, hey, you've got $10,000 listed on Class 8. Are there any contingencies attached to that money? The money was put up, thankfully, from Nexen Tire, and I said, do I have to run their tires? Is there a minimum number of entries in the class? Because oftentimes there's caveats.
Right.
Sure.
And the caveats are there so it saves companies money, and I get it. Yeah, I totally understand. If there's not enough people to get them $10,000 worth of publicity, then they don't want to pay it, and that's fine. I totally understand that. I've dealt with that before in my own series, and that's fine. That's a good way to operate.
Oh, yeah.
This one had no strings attached. You show up, you make all 4 laps, you win, you're the only one there that does that. You're the only one there that shows up, period, and meets all the requirements of the race. Here's a check for $10,000.
Dang it.
Holy smokes. Well, I have a Class 8 truck. It hasn't run in 3 years, and I haven't driven it in 3 years, and I don't even know if it still works. Let's put it together and go race the Mint in a month and a half. So I decide right then and there, we're going to the Mint. We're just going to do it. I haven't raced the truck. I want to race the truck. Like I said, it's been 3 years since it's been raced, which was 2018 Mint 400 in a different class. Same truck, just was trying a different class at that time, and it's legal for both, for anybody that's wondering. And I thought, well, let's put it together, and if I can get the truck to start and run, I'll go, because it doesn't have to go fast.
Right.
It just has to go.
Yeah.
So if it can move under its own power, we'll go. Well, in order to get it to run under its own power, I had already cut out the fuel cell, so I had no fuel. I had no racks for spare tires. The entire fuel system had gummed up and was full of varnish because I didn't drain it and I didn't put Stabil in it or anything like that.
Yep.
All of the injectors were gummed up.
Ugh.
The fuel rails were gummed up. The regulator was gummed up. My $100 fuel pump was gummed up.
Oh man.
Once I got everything to where I could turn the motor over, both batteries were dead, so I had to buy 2 brand new batteries. Put those on it. I figured out the fuel pump was dead, swapped the fuel pump. I was running off of a 2-gallon jug with 1 gallon of seafoam and 1 gallon of premium gas to try to get the truck started. Once I started getting fuel through the system, it wasn't running right. I found out that one of my feed hoses was not fuel rated, and over time, the rubber had eaten out, braided stainless AN hose,
Yep.
and it was sucking air. So I thought, okay, well, let's cut that off and build a new one of those and keep trying this thing. And it started slowly coming to life, and it finally started running on like 3 cylinders. And I thought, well, we're screwed. This isn't going to work. Mm-hmm. And my buddy said, just give it some time and let's run that seafoam through it and let's see what happens. And those gambler guys, they swear by that seafoam stuff.
Oh yeah.
Now I do too. you cycle a 50-50 mix of that through, and I had the return feeding back into the same jug, so it was just constant seafoam. Slowly, all the cylinders started coming back online as it was idling. And I once it sounded like a V8, I said, well, that's good. I think we're going to the mint. I had to put in a new fuel cell. I upgraded to a 70-gallon fuel cell, increasing over my original 32 gallons. I built, with the help of some of my buddies there in Lubbock, we built a new tire rack for the back of the truck to hold my spares. That was low priority on the list. Number 1 priority was make sure the truck still runs. And number 2 priority was put a fuel cell in it. Spare tire, I could have strapped one to something and made it work, or not carried any at all and run that risk. It's not a requirement. So we did the best we could. We ended up doing almost everything that I wanted. Yeah. I had the Achilles heel on that truck in the past. I've owned it since 2015 with a couple partners, and then I bought them out at the end of 2018. So we've had the truck 6 years, and its Achilles heel at every single event has been the hydraulic system attached to the brakes, power steering, etc. So power steering pump, hydro boost, steering box, all of that has been the problem area for that truck. Now, it's never prevented us from finishing a race, but it has caused us heartache trying to finish races. Like I drove 300 or 400 miles in Baja with no brakes and no power steering because of that. It's not fun. Truck weighs 9,000 pounds. Everything I own is heavy. So I put a completely new system in that truck. I found a guy up, I think he's on the East Coast, Eric Amato with Radial Dynamics. He builds these awesome pumps and this really, really cool reservoir that's, I'm not sure what his official name for it is, but I call it a vortex reservoir. And what it does is the way the fluid moves through that power steering fluid reservoir, it de-aerates the oil.
Oh, nice.
So it pulls all the air bubbles out of the oil. So you have constant, solid, air-free fluid running through your pump, through your hydro boost, through your steering box. And then it goes back into an awesome big Donaldson filter and a well-designed billet cooler. So those things are what you need to keep that system alive under the conditions in which I'm using them. So that was all new. I put the pump on and the pulley wouldn't line up right. So the pulley was off by like 1 rib in thickness. So about 1/8 of an inch misalignment on the pulley, which I was not expecting per se, but I knew it may not fit right because it's not a direct replacement pump for that truck. It bolts into the same spot and it uses the factory pulley, but it's not the same exact pump as what came off the truck. Okay, I can deal with that. So got that whole system on, got it all plumbed in. It took me, I started collecting parts on this thing 2 years ago, and over time I forgot how things were plumbed and wired and things I had taken apart. So I call all my buddies with stock trucks. Hey, send me pictures of this and that because I don't remember how any of this is supposed to go together. Finally get it all figured out. I buy probably the most expensive supply of AN fittings in the world. I've got, you name it, I probably have a fitting for it now. Fortunately, I've got a good shop, Lone Star Horsepower in Lubbock, that keeps all that stuff in stock. And I was there when I was prepping the truck. Outside of work, I had 2 weeks to get ready for the mint. I was there every single day buying a new fitting. And they thought it was real funny that I'm helping them fund their brand new building one fitting at a time.
Yeah.
So
see, all this work he's telling us about, and I just keep remember you bragging about not buying a new car to you this year. I'm like,
right.
well,
I mean, I've built a new car.
I mean, technicalities.
That's right. This was a car that I already owned.
That's right.
So it doesn't count. Modifications are not buying new cars.
Right.
I have plenty of caveats for my New Year's resolution. Fight me. So get the steering sorted out, get the fuel cell in, get the truck running. It runs. I pull it out of the shop about 3 days. No, probably like 2 days before I have to go back to work for 2 weeks, and then immediately leave for the mint, like the day after I get off work. And I work out of town. I don't work at home. I'm away from my house for 2 weeks when I'm at work. Fortunately, I'm close enough that if I have time, I can sneak away. But it's a 3-hour round trip, and I work 12-hour shifts. So not a lot of time.
Yeah.
And the truck was unfinished when we put it on the trailer and I headed west to go to Las Vegas. It ran and drove. It had tires in it, but I had no jack to pick the truck up to change the tires. No way to mount that on it yet. The tires were not very secure. I had only driven the truck at this point about 3 miles. Maybe it had run for 30 minutes in the last 3 years. And here I am signed up to race a 400-mile race, 1,000 miles away from my house and my shop. Way to go. Good.
Go big or go home, right?
Awesome.
I would like to say that for anybody that's listening to this that would like to work with me on my race program, I don't normally operate this way. I normally am very, very well planned out and very, very well prepped. But again, there was nobody entered, and I checked every day. I updated the entry list, and still nobody entered. I thought, okay, well, I have a chance. I have a chance at this because my truck, being a Class 8, is limited in the Class 8 field. It's slow. It's heavy. It does not have a lot of wheel travel. It usually has. I have to say usually now. I would just say it is very reliable, but at this point it is usually very reliable and very durable. But it's not competitive. If there are other legit Class 8 trucks show up, that are well-built Class 8 trucks, they're not built like mine. Class 8, before the mid-90s, was basically the upper echelon of off-road racing. It was the trophy truck of off-road racing. You had to keep a stock frame under the vehicle, and you had to keep the same motor manufacturer as the body. Whatever vehicle it was.
Okay.
Ford, Chevy, Mopar. But outside of that, the rules are pretty open.
Wow.
It has to have the same style front suspension as it came with. So mine, solid axle, has to have a solid axle. If it's an A-arm, it's got to have A-arms. Doesn't have to have stock A-arms. It can have long travel A-arms. If it's a beam truck, you have to have beams, but you can have long travel beams, and you can link the rear and put coilovers on it. I'm still on leaf springs.
Wow.
So my truck is very limited for the class. But that's the category that it falls under. So nobody's entered. There's a good chance for some old slow turtle to show up and do it. So we got it out there. For years I had wanted to do a tribute livery on the truck to honor my hero in off-road racing, my racing hero, which is Rod Hall. He raced for Dodge for probably over 10 years, I think, being factory sponsored by Dodge, and he raced for them all over the world. He took Ram Charger to Africa and raced it in I think it was the East Africa Safari. They raced that. He raced a Mitsubishi Raider like up north in the Arctic or some, that may not be right, but somewhere up north, I think they took this Mitsubishi Raider. For some reason, no, I'm not going to get into that because I don't have the details right. But he raced for Dodge all over the world.
Man.
And he had this one particular paint scheme on his truck on one couple seasons of one of his trucks. It was a yellow top with an orange and a red separator, a white middle, and a black rocker panel that said Ram Tough on it. And it had the Chrysler Pentastar background for his number.
Okay.
And then a matte black hood. And I thought, man, that is the coolest looking truck. That's it. And so I found a lot of good pictures of it, and I took it over to my buddy Jeremy at Black Spot Design in Lubbock, and they printed up a wrap for me, and we wrapped my truck just like his. Instead of the Chrysler Pentastar, I used the Ram's head shape, the shield shape that the Ram's head is on, and that was my number plate, and I put Ram Tough on the bottom of that truck, and man, that was the right choice.
That's awesome.
When I showed up at Tech and Contingency after we thrashed for 2 days at the Airbnb, in this real quiet neighborhood, we got welding machines going and grinders and it had generators going, and we're rebuilding the back of my truck to make sure I have a jack and everything else that I need, and once we roll that sucker through contingency, man, didn't matter that there were $1 million trophy trucks on either side of me. That was the truck that people wanted to see.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm part of several groups that you popped up in during this whole adventure, and I was like, man, he's making waves.
And one of the things I'm most proud of with that truck is that it represents in a way different than almost every other race vehicle what a blue collar average Joe person can do in the sport. Now there are certainly other race vehicles that represent that as well and are budget friendly in that manner and whatnot, but a 4-wheel drive 3/4 ton crew cab Dodge pickup is quintessential working person truck.
Yeah.
And almost everyone can relate to that through their uncle or their grandpa or their dad or their brother or them. They've got one, they've got a truck like that, and they look at it and they see it's got 8 lugs on it. What is this? And it's a mostly stock 3/4 ton 4-wheel drive.
I'm watching the video of you now bucking over all the the whoops and stuff in the desert right now. It brings a smile to my face just to watch that big girl.
It's awesome to watch. It's even more awesome to be inside of it.
I can imagine. All right, Matt. I hate to interrupt what we are building towards here because we've only just caught up with Bryant from the past year, and just his couple of trips to Baja. We got to meet him in person. We got to see his chase truck in person. You were quite envious of it.
I love it.
As were many other journalists at the event. Next week's episode is going to be a very good one because we get to hear him regale his stories of his journey to the Mint 400. gosh, when was that? Just a few weeks ago.
Just a couple of weeks ago, yeah.
Out in Vegas, out in the desert. Just an amazing story. The amount of publicity he got from it alone is impressive for him, but just the fun he got to have, the people he got to bring along with him, the stories he got to tell are amazing. You'll want to stay tuned here for that. If you haven't subscribed already, please do, so you get notified when that episode drops next week. As with everything, you can find everything that we do on Facebook and Instagram, both at GT Garage Talk, and absolutely everything is at gtgaragetalk.com. Until next time, bye.